Compostable pots and trays are all the rage right now. They're marketed as an eco-friendly option and an easy way to start and transplant seedlings. My advice? Don't do it. For starters, moisture control is incredibly difficult with these pots. In my growing space downstairs, I've had tons of issues regulating moisture. These pepper seedlings are bone dry. Because of their pots, they need to be watered multiple times a day, and the fan, which is necessary to help provide airflow, dries out these fiber pots super quickly. And any overcorrection tilts the moisture issue in the opposite direction. My artichoke seedlings are basically drowning, and that's with watering them only a couple times a week. Because I'm not running a fan on them so they won't dry out, the stagnant air invites mold and rot. And I'm half surprised I've only lost one of my 9 artichoke seedlings so far. Each pot is showing signs of mold and algae. Fiber pots are also single use, which isn't my favorite. The trays have to be completely destroyed in order to pot up seedlings. I would much rather have containers that I can use for years to come rather than buying fiber pots every season. Now sure, plastic isn't the perfect material for the environment, but this is where the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle comes into play with gardening. I reduce my usage of plastic by not buying plastic pots specifically for gardening, and I reuse by holding on to old pots I've collected when buying different plants from nurseries. And I'm upcycling my yogurt containers. All I have to do is drill holes in the bottom for drainage, and now I have all the 4-inch pots I need to pot up my seedlings. And anything that gets too worn out or I don't have a use for, I recycle. Fiber pots also wreak havoc on developing root systems. Any potting up from a fiber pot will absolutely rip your roots to shreds. Now, you'd think that this was a feature and not a bug. If these pots are truly meant to break down when planted, it'd reason that the roots would be able to easily break through, and eventually the pot would decompose in the soil. Well, let's test that. I recently potted up my tomato seedlings and decided to compare how well a plant does by staying in its fiber pot versus a plant that was removed from its pot. And for this test, I chose 2 of my strongest looking seedlings. With the control plant, I added some soil into a 4-inch pot, added the plant, fiber pot and all, and buried with more potting mix. Then I took my test tomato plant and potted it up into the same size pot with the same potting mix as the control plant. Only before planting, I removed the plant from its fiber pot. Notice the tearing of the roots, even when being as delicate as possible. And then I let them sit in the same conditions for just about 2 weeks. And here they are now, still looking pretty good. Definitely continued growth from both of them, which is encouraging. Now on initial inspection, they're both looking really decent. One of the things that I'm noticing right out of the gate is that the leaves of the control tomato are showing some signs of stress. They're curling, which it's not the end of the world, but it could indicate that the plant isn't getting adequate nutrition or that the roots are struggling. Meanwhile, the test tomato's leaves are looking great. There's no curling, there's no discoloration. This plant is super healthy. Also, notice the difference in stem thickness between these 2 plants. The control tomato is a little taller, but it already was when it was potted up. But the stem is much thinner than the test tomato's stem, which is nice and bulky. And this is why we pot up tomatoes multiple times ahead of transplanting outside, and why it's great practice to plant your tomatoes deeply each time you transplant. These little bumps on the tomato stem, called adventitious roots, they will take hold in the soil, providing even more nutrition to the plant and bulking up the stem. Now for the big reveal, how do the root systems look and how do they compare to one another? To check on the developing root system and to see how the roots did with the fiber pot still attached, we'll just firmly grab at the base of the plant, tip over the pot, and squeeze a little bit to loosen things up. And it should slide out of the pot very neatly. Now take a look at this. Some of the roots were able to make their way out of the pot and continue to develop. Now, one thing I'm definitely noticing is how the fiber pot is still very much intact. It's only been about 2 weeks, sure, but the fiber pot basically looks like it did when I planted it. It's no doubt holding back some of the development of this plant's roots. Now let's see how the test plant is doing. Look at this. Wow. Given room to breathe, this plant's root system has absolutely taken off. It's remarkable to see how well these roots have filled this pot. I could even make an argument for potting up this plant again at this point to avoid it from becoming root bound. And the side by side tells me all I need to know. The fiber pots absolutely limit the ability to develop a strong root system. And this is the number one reason why I'm quitting compostable pots. Imagine if these were in the ground right now. We're already seeing a difference in the overall health of these plants. Given even more time, I have no doubt that the test plant would continue to thrive and the control plant is going to struggle. Well, there it is. And the difference is clear. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely quitting compostable pots moving forward. I hope you found this helpful and that it encourages you to consider running your own experiments to decide whether it's worth passing on fiber pots in the future. For me, while they initially seem like the better choice, I just don't have confidence that they're going to adequately support the health of my plants. Happy growing.